Hey everyone, Stacks here. Today we're checking out 3 of the Absolute Carnage tie-ins for the week. Venom number 17, Absolute Carnage Miles Morales number 1, and Absolute Carnage Lethal Protectors number 1. And with the scope this big of we're going after everybody who's ever had a symbiote, these tie-ins basically reassure us that they haven't forgotten anybody. And overall, as far as tie-ins go, these each provide a little bit of depth and complexity to this already huge ongoing storyline. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do each one of the books, I'll go through the plot, and I'll do my review and my thoughts on each of the books at the very end. There are some spoilers, so if you haven't read the book yet, make sure you go do that, and then we can get into this. And we're going to start with Venom number 17. It's written by Donny, and the artist is Iban Coello. I think I'm saying that right. And then you have Rain Barreto on colors. And this book lets you know right away that the stakes are for real. The initial shot of Eddie Brock just beaten and battered, sitting there saying, "My name's Eddie Brock. Our name is Venom. And this is the day that we die." And with that, we are right back in Ravencroft with Spider-Man and Venom fighting with everything they have, fighting for their lives against this Carnage horde. And as Eddie Brock fights with everything he has just to try to survive this encounter, he can't help but reflect on his life and the mistakes he's made and the regrets he has. And he is convinced, Eddie Brock is completely convinced, that they are not going to survive this encounter. Now, while all this is going on, the Maker is back at Rex's warehouse babysitting Dylan and Normie Osborn. He's also working on a machine that can extract the codex from individuals without killing them. That's obviously important because you pull the codex out of someone, that person is no longer a target. And a quick spoiler for Absolute Carnage number 2, for instance here is Anna Wang. When she had Dylan, the codex passed to Dylan. So because of that, Anna Wang, even though she's already dead, her grave wasn't dug up and the codex extracted like it was for the people of Dover, Colorado and Thunderbolt Ross and all those individuals. Now the plan here was that they were going to test this on Norman Osborn first, and the Maker had strict instructions from Eddie Brock not to use it on either one of the boys. However, once the piece of equipment is complete, the Maker isn't wasting any time and he's ready to throw Normie in it now. But Dylan isn't having it. He pushes Normie back and tells him, look, Spider-Man and Eddie both said that we are not doing this until they get back and try this on Norman Osborn. Well, the Maker tries to coax, tries to intimidate, tries several different ways to get Dylan to step aside, and he's not moving. And right as the Maker's possibly about to spill the beans, he's looking down and saying, "You know what? You're just like your..." A bunch of alarms start going off across, and suddenly the Life Foundation symbiotes come busting into the warehouse. And while the two boys are terrified, the Maker doesn't even flinch. He just tells them, "Oh, you guys are the Life Foundation symbiotes I've heard so little about." And when one of the symbiotes threatens him and basically says, "We don't know who you are, get out of our way," he's like, "Oh, you don't know me? Huh, you will." And he reaches over, long arms it, hits a button and says, "Kill all symbiotes." And these machine guns in the warehouse swing over and just open fire. And while these machine guns have the symbiotes held up, the Maker looks back over his shoulder, tells Dylan and Normie to get to the armory and lock the door now. What follows with this 1-on-4, the Maker versus 4 symbiotes, is pretty awesome. The Maker gets grabbed around the throat, and he's just sitting there with his arms crossed, reaches out, grabs a blaster, says maximum payload capacity, sonic round, engages, and just blows the first symbiote away. In the aftermath, he's sitting there looking at this little girl. He steps forward, puts the rifle straight to her face, and is about to pull the trigger when the other symbiotes swarm him. They manage to pull him down to the ground and disable the rifle, and as soon as they have him down, one of the symbiotes makes a break for the boys. In the armory, Dylan's managed to arm himself, and they're behind this huge steel door that doesn't last long at all. The symbiote shows up and just starts ripping right through the thing. He makes short work of the door, just ripping right through it. Says, "Hello, boys." He quickly whips the rifle out of Dylan's hand, and as Phage walks forward, he tells him, "You, child, smell of your father. You reek of venom. You we kill for fun. He dies for carnage." And right as Phage is about to kill both the boys, suddenly somebody from behind grabs him, somebody invisible at this point, and you realize as he cracks his neck, it's the Sleeper symbiote. And he tells him, "My name is Sleeper. You can trust me. I am family. And if you're thinking, who the heck is the sleeper symbiote? He is another Venom offspring. He was raised by Alchemax instead of the Life Foundation. And through a series of shenanigans, he ended up lobotomizing a Kree warrior, and that's who he's bonded to, this brain-dead Kree warrior that he's piloting, basically. Bottom line on him, he's a good guy. Him and Venom, they understand family. They are actually allies in all of this. The second book we're going to cover is Absolute Carnage Miles Morales, and it has this beautiful cover by Clayton Crain, who in my opinion, hands down, is one of the best artists there is in comic books, period. The book's written by Saladin Ahmed and drawn by Federico Vicentini. I'm probably pronouncing that horribly wrong, and I apologize. I'll give my opinion on the art and the writing at the end. I'm just going to go over the plot points for the story, and like I said, I'll cover all the review stuff at the end. So the book starts with Miles Morales hanging out with his buddy, and they're checking out some sneakers, and Miles Morales is drooling all over him. Well, as they're standing there, it just so happens that the Scorpion is going to break into an armored truck, and when he does, money goes flying everywhere. Miles Morales quickly hops into the fight, and when he does, he realizes that the Scorpion ain't no punk. In fact, Scorpion actually manages to scoop up Miles and toss him down the street like a ragdoll. Well, at that point, Miles is done being cute and decides to try to hit Scorpion with the Venom Blast, only to find out that Scorpion's suit is insulated and it doesn't have any effect on him. Realizing that, Miles has to kick it into high gear and really does start to get the upper hand on Scorpion when suddenly a bunch of Carnage symbiotes, this Carnage horde that we've seen over in Absolute Carnage, starts just charging down the road dressed in Ravencroft suits from the mental institution, and they're all yelling Gargan. And at this point, they're not after Miles. They're after Mac Gargan, because at one point he was Venom. As part of the Norman Osborn Dark Avengers storyline, he was Venom during that time. I mean, Miles just can't let him eat Scorpion, though, so they end up calling a truce. They end up fighting back to back up until the point where the Scorpion realizes they're losing, and he flat out just sacrifices the kid to try to escape. It's bad enough that Miles never even saw it coming, but what makes it worse is that when he hits the ground and skids forward, he ends up looking up right into the eyes of Carnage. Now at that point, Carnage is not really focused on Miles. Instead, he's focused on getting the codex from the Scorpion. So he reaches out and grabs the Scorpion from behind, which is kind of misleading because we saw in Absolute Carnage that Eddie Brock actually threw the Scorpion back into the fight. Anyways, Scorpion grabs him and is about to start ripping out his codex when Miles Morales does exactly what he did over in Absolute Carnage number 2 and just hits him with a Venom Blast and just rocks Carnage. Well, if he didn't have his attention before, he sure as heck has his attention now. Venom scoops up Scorpion and Carnage reacts. He grabs, overwhelms Miles Morales, and at that point, there's nothing Miles can do. He's just swarmed. But Carnage doesn't kill Miles. Instead, he carnageizes him. He now has a carnageized Miles Morales. Another symbiote super soldier, if you will. And so this, even though we saw this in Absolute Carnage 2, this provided a little bit different angle and kind of explained why Scorpion and Miles were together to begin with. The next book is Absolute Carnage Lethal Protectors number 1. And if you're looking at this thinking, oh cool, we're going to get some Iron Fist and some Cloak and Dagger and Morbius, you would be wrong. But you are going to get some interesting backstory, and you're going to get some tiebacks and some deep cuts back to Maximum Carnage. So it isn't a bad book. It's actually pretty cool. The writer on this book is Frank Thierry, and the artist is Flaviano. And the story starts with a flashback actually to hours before during Absolute Carnage number 1, and it's John Jameson at Ravencroft receiving a call from Spider-Man. And of course, this was Spider-Man calling because he needed the favor. He needed to access Norman Osborn so that he could try to remove the Codex. And while Venom doesn't trust John Jameson, Spider-Man tells him, look man, it's going to be okay. He can be trusted. He's a good dude. And it does reveal that John Jameson can clear the facility. However, the way that he cleared the facility is he killed all the other guards. And this all ties back to Cult of Carnage, where he went to Dover, Colorado to try to investigate everything that was going on there, and in turn was found days later naked by Misty Knight. From there, Carnage informs the entire population of Ravencroft that he accepts them he accepts their codexes, basically accepts their spines and their blood as into the cult of Carnage. And when he's doing this, he comes across 3 old friends that we all probably remember from Maximum Carnage, including the Spider-Man doppelganger, Shriek, and as we've already seen, John Jameson. We also find out that John Jameson managed to attack and capture Misty Knight. Now, Misty Knight's convinced she's about to be a sacrifice in some kind of ritual. They take her bionic arm from her and lead her out to see Carnage. And that is where she's actually informed that you're not the sacrifice, you're the feeding after the sacrifice. They're trying to resurrect someone. The actual sacrifice has to be a willing participant, and it's Shriek. And Carnage doesn't even hesitate to pull the codex out of Shriek and begin this ritual. And once he does, though, somebody looks over and realizes that Misty Knight's arm is glowing. And we find out that her arm was specially equipped with a sonic blast once they found out she was going to Doverton, and there possibly Carnage was behind all of it. Well, that blast provides just enough time for her to reattach her arm and try to start making her escape, when then she realizes what it was they were resurrecting. And what they were resurrecting is the Demogoblin. And the Demogoblin ain't playing. Comes up, rips her arm off immediately, and then starts correcting people about their pronouns. Misty Knight, as quick as she can, makes a break for it down the hall, finds a sewer grate, and follows it down. Just anything to escape. And Carnage isn't that concerned because he honestly knows what's going on in the sewers below the city. And Misty Knight, as she crawls away through the sewers, soon realizes herself that she may have jumped right out of the frying pan and into the fire, as she looks down into the sewers and there's just hundreds of Carnage clone symbiotes. And that's your conclusion to Absolute Carnage Lethal Protectors. So of the 3 books, I felt like Venom and Lethal Protectors both advanced the storyline. There was additions to the storyline that helped move it forward. Venom, with the realization that now Dylan knows that Eddie is his father, or at least he should, based off the comment that Phage made. You have the Maker, who is ready to test this equipment that removes the codex, and then you also have the Sleeper symbiote showing up. I also feel like Iban Coello's art was not a huge backslide from Ryan Stegman's. I mean, it's noticeably not. I mean, it's nothing against him. It's good art. It's just Ryan Stegman right now has the Venom symbiote Carnage thing. He's got it on lock. You just can't top him right now at it. I do think that color artist Frank Martin over in Absolute Carnage has a darker feel to the coloring, and it really helps. The color artist over in Venom number 17, Rain Barreto, it's a little bit lighter. It's still really good. The art in Venom, I enjoyed it. It was not distracting. It wasn't a violent car crash of a difference between the two. Venom number 17 is definitely a recommend. Definitely, I enjoyed the scenes with the Maker. Especially when he's fighting the symbiotes. It's really cool scenes. Plus, if you're like me, you don't want to break your Venom run for anything because you've been on it since number 1 and Donny Cates has been killing it. So you want to stay with the run. Next, I'm going to talk Miles Morales. And the art over here was not as... It was a little bit more of a shock when you put the two beside each other, if you know what I mean. As I already mentioned, the cover art by Clayton Crain is beautiful. That guy can draw... He's probably my favorite artist right now. On the interiors, I feel like Absolute Carnage is far and away better than this Miles Morales one. Look at the two side by side, and the colors, the line work, all of it is just nowhere near this detailed. And it's really a shame that the Miles Morales book doesn't have a better artist. I put a lot of that on the colorist though, because look at how the colors in the Miles Morales book have these pink and purple hues and these light tones, and it's just not, it doesn't have that horror quality to it at all. Something else that bothered me on the art is that you have the Scorpion over here to the side ripping and flipping through a armored truck, and this is the reaction you get from a group of people. I mean, look at old girl on the right. She is, I mean, look out, exclamation point. I mean, she's just... It's very static. It's not inspired. It's just there. Finally, I gotta say that I prefer Donny Cates and writing Miles Morales. I thought Miles Morales and Absolute Carnage was awesome. Then I come over here and read this, and I don't like the way Saladin Ahmed writes him. I just don't. Ultimately, this book did nothing to advance the story of Absolute Carnage other than give us the background as to why Scorpion and Miles Morales were together. Finally, getting to Lethal Protectors, I honestly thought Lethal Protectors was just really a pleasant surprise. The book gave some interesting background. It told you how John Jameson managed to clear the prison, and he did it actually while under Carnage's control. It advanced a past story with Misty Knight and John Jameson, and it also dealt with what else is going on in some of these other loose ends from Maximum Carnage, including Shriek and Doppelganger, and actually bringing in the Demogoblin. Hats off to artist Flaviano, I think is how you say it, and Federico Blee, the color artist. Both of them, the art was good in it. The coloring was much more of the horror genre variety. It was darker. It was a really good book in my opinion. I enjoyed it. And while I was disappointed that I didn't get Iron Fist and Cloak and Dagger, I shrugged my shoulders and say I could deal with it because it was a good story. I like Misty Knight as a character, and I think going forward we're going to get those characters in a big way, hopefully in the next issue. Like I said, picking up Lethal Protectors was kind of a happy surprise. I was glad I did, and I really enjoyed it. I'm going to get issue 2. I don't know that I'll get Miles Morales, the second one. If it's the same creative team, I got to check. And I will definitely be on Venom number 18 whenever it drops. I do have to say I'm intrigued by what's going to happen with Miles Morales. I figure I can figure out what's going to happen in Absolute Carnage number 3. Hey guys, 85 to 90% of the individuals who watch this channel aren't subscribed to it. I am quickly closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and those unfamiliar with actually creating YouTube content, that is a huge deal. So if you can, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a like. It's like leaving me a tip and saying thank you for the work. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I appreciate it, guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Real Comic Stacks, out.